is the colors that we see, we're living like so dull
Mm,
because the colors that I saw, HD's got nothing on it. It's just like how everything is just vivid, like like so bright and so vivid. But we had by me. I'm still here. I've been brought back to do something really cool. Now my journey is to find out what's that cool thing. Am I here to help somebody? Am I here to be part of something? What is it? Where is it? How's it going to be? And what an exciting time, an exciting life to be just searching for that every day. Top quality advisors, they get it. They know that the client, if I take care of the client, revenue will take care of itself. If I
right.
focus on revenue, I'm going to have sales perfume on, and they're gonna smell it. They're gonna.
Our guest today on the Mental Toughness podcast has built a 40-year career in the financial services industry. Complex director for the Triad and Triangle regions of Truist Investment Services. He led the firm's team of 42 advisors, generating more than 70 million in annual revenue, managing over 11 billion in assets. His team earned national recognition from Forbes and Barron's while maintaining an exceptional compliance record. Today, he serves as a board member for the Western Carolina chapter of Folds of Honor. And in 2004, his hinge moment was a life-threatening car accident, forced him, as he'll share today, into a month-long coma, how he had to relearn how to walk, speak, ultimately redefine how he would lead and live. I'm excited about our guest today, Tim Mann. Tim, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, Rob. Pleasure to be here.
Lifelong Bills fan. Maybe we
I,
just maybe that's the question right there, right?
well, it's not a question. You don't grow up in Western New York. I grew up right outside of Buffalo in a little town called Lewiston, and if you weren't a Bills fan, you just weren't alive during the fall.
Yeah. I always liked those teams in the 90s. I mean, they were great teams, man.
Dude, I go back to Jack Kemp when, War
Oh, okay.
Memorial Stadium. I mean, just when I was a little kid, I got great memories of that stuff.
My dad was a big Jack Kemp fan.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
smart
Um,
man.
yeah. Yeah, right. I remember when again, I was a Redskins fan growing up. So I remember when Tim Russert like pleaded like for the nation, hey, come on, like root for the Bills. And I remember he got like backlash for that. And I was like I like that guy now. You know what I mean? Because he's willing to put himself out there. And I always thought, I mean, I never watched Meet
Grosser's
the
a
Press, but
classic. He's a classic Western New Yorker. I
yeah,
mean, it's just Philly fans, Redskin fans. I won't even say Jets fans that they don't matter.
right.
So I mean, that's your team, man, and get behind him. And what's wrong with you?
Yeah, yeah. But that's when I was like, I kind of like him, man. He's pretty cool.
He's Grosser's very cool.
Yeah, he had a long run, man. That was great.
Yep.
When when I'm always researching and then checking people's like background, on my mom's side of the family, they all delivered papers. So I would hear the stories about delivering papers. Talk to us about your experience, man, as doing that, growing up.
Your research is impeccable because that was the family business. I mean, my brothers handed it down to me, and I happened to be back in Lewiston where I grew up now visiting my mom, who'll turn 95 next month. Just visiting for a little bit and had a drink last night with a buddy of mine who we've been lifelong friends. He delivered the morning paper. His family had that franchise, and my family had the franchise of the afternoon paper, the Niagara Falls Gazette. But we delivered 100, or I delivered, it got passed down when I was 12, 116 newspapers. So double bagged. You
Hmm.
loved Fridays and Saturdays because they were the lightest papers. You hated Wednesdays because they had the inserts all the time with the ads, and you had to physically put them together. Um, and Sundays were brutal. And,
Yeah.
delivering in the snow, you're pulling a toboggan along with piles of paper behind you.
Right.
And, when that glorious day would come and my father would say, "Hey, do you want me to drive?" He'd be like, "Oh, yeah, this is awesome." But in the absence of that, man, you were just trudging along. Today, I drive past one of these houses in our small town, and I go back, yep, that's the side screen door, that's the mailbox, that's the everything. But
Hmm.
it was hard work, and you had to be there every day. You had to show up every day, and that's what I learned is that the value of hard work, and the there wasn't an option of being sick. You had to show up, and people were expecting their paper,
Yeah.
and that was my parents' expectation that I was going to deliver.
Yep. I love it, man. The consistency piece. Absolutely. I told my daughter about that the other day about how, hey, there used to be a morning paper and an afternoon paper. That's
Yeah,
how you get it. That's always fascinating. You played football at SUNY Plattsburgh. Um, when you went there for school and then playing football, what stands out to you about that whole experience? Because I know you keep these friendships even today.
yeah, we've got a text string with a bunch of Plattsburgh State guys on the text string, mostly upperclassmen, for guys that I went to school with. But I guess the way I ended up at Plattsburgh, we'll call it just God's direction of where my life was going, because I had no direction. Education, um, my brother played, my oldest brother went in the Air Force. Next oldest brother played at John Carroll. Next oldest brother played at Canisius. And so it was just one of these things that, you go to school, you play football. Ironically, none of them had ever completed their education. They they did 4 years of football, but they never completed their educations. Not to say that education wasn't important for my parents, but it was on you. If you're going to do it, you do it. You find the financing. They didn't have any money. You find the financing. You find how to get there, like physically how to get there, what school you're going to pick out. My choices were not directed by my parents, and I really didn't seek out the help of a guidance counselor. I that you could. I remember it to this day. For $70, you could apply to 4 New York State schools. So my mom said, "Yeah, I'll give you the $70. You pick the schools, and you figure out why you want to go there."
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine that to this day is one of my closest friends. I was the best man in his wedding and all that other stuff. He actually graduated with my older brother, and he was going to Plattsburgh. And he called me up. He said, "Hey, I heard you're looking at schools. Why don't you come play here?" Rob, the first day that I went to Plattsburgh to visit the school was for spring practice. Or not spring practice. We had early fall practice. We showed up
Hmm.
before the students did. I had never visited the campus. I had never visited the school. I just knew that, hey, I was accepted there. It was either there uh, or Oberlin of Ohio to play baseball. But I thought Ohio was so far away. Ohio was 3 hours away. Plattsburgh was 8. So my geography classes weren't very good.
That's great.
But yeah, so we had a terrible football team, but a great camaraderie and a great experience of it was like a immediate frat. You've got
Mhm.
a clique of people that you can hang out with and share experiences with at the same time.
I want to get into the hinge moment, but before that, when did you get interested in the financial service industries?
I got interested in the financial services industry kind of the same way I went to Plattsburgh, right? So, uh, in 1980, I graduated college in 1981. I graduated first in my family to graduate. So I graduated in 1981, and at that time, I was going to be a math teacher and a football coach.
Okay.
No doubt about it. I was good at math and love football. So I early education major. I was going to be a school teacher, but then when I did my student teaching, I realized I'm not cut out for this. because I believed in meritocracy and the apathy that existed between the students, the parents, the administrators, teachers. I mean, apathy throughout the system, and tenure was rewarded, not merit. So I was like, I got to find something else to do. At the time, 1981, Western New York, unemployment was over 20%.
Wow.
And during the time, my freshman year, when my parents dropped me off in Plattsburgh, that was the first time they saw the campus too. The only other time they actually saw the campus was at graduation. So they had moved. My dad took a job in Louisiana. They had moved to Baton Rouge for a promotion that he had taken. And he had been a lifelong Western New York guy, did 25 years in the Air Force, and then retired from the Air Force and went to work for Xerox, starting at the bottom. And Xerox offered him different promotions along the way, for which he turned them down. And then finally they said, look, you got to take this one or you're here for the rest of your career, and then you just got to figure it out. So he took it and really changed our family's trajectory going to Louisiana because they figured out, you know, there's a different lifestyle than what everybody knew in Western New York.
Hmm.
But to answer your question, how did I get in financial services? Graduated, went to Louisiana because oil was popping at that time in the early 80s. I mean, helicopters flying from the rigs into the towns, everybody wearing gold nugget jewelry, all that kind of stuff. So I started out by being introduced to a guy that was the president of a local bank. And he said, there's no banking positions, but one of my buddies has this insurance agency. So he had an insurance agency that was unique. They did the Louisiana State Medical Society and Louisiana State Dental Association insurance programs, and then you'd sell on top of that. So I started selling insurance in Louisiana, traveling all over the state with that company. Great experience. Other athletes there, but they were D1 athletes. They were guys that played on LSU's basketball team and things like that. So it was a competitive environment, an environment that I loved
Hmm.
and succeeded in. And uh, things were going great. And my wife said, "This is awesome. I'm glad your practice is doing so well, but I just want to let you know I'll never birth a child in the state of Louisiana."
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I get that.
Yeah.
So long story short, call up my buddy who's living in Boston, the same one that got me to Plattsburgh. I said, "Hey, tell me about Boston. What's going on there?" And his wife was working at EF Hutton at the time. So I went and took uh, an interview with EF Hutton, but I was like, as long as I'm here, I might as well do Merrill Lynch too. So long story short, ended up getting hired on at Merrill Lynch and stayed there for a little bit.
Yeah.
The career took different trajectories throughout the
Where,
business.
um, I can't ask everybody this question, Tim, so I'm going to ask you. 1987, where were you?
1987, I had moved. I do everything off my kid's birthday. My
Yep.
daughter was born in 1986. So 1987, we had moved back to New York outside of Albany because we wanted to be near family. We wanted to raise our kid near family. And Sandy, my wife, her family's from Albany. I met Sandy while we were up in Plattsburgh. So in 1987, I was starting my own practice in Albany, working as part of a property and casualty agency. I was the financial services department, but I own the business and they own 50% of the business. And so I was sitting in my chair. I remember exactly where it was in 1987, October of 87 in particular.
Yeah.
Uh, and it got a pretty big shock early.
Right. Right. Did did that affect you?
My business wasn't big enough at that point. It affected me because anybody that I brought on board from that point made money,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know, and
Right.
so, and they were the advantage for me. I think I was born at like a perfect time. just missed the Vietnam War era, all this other stuff. And so 87 happens to be a perfect time for me to be newer in the business because people were looking for alternative, things are going great. They're not really seeking out different advice. When something happens, they want other advice. So they were taking it from, all sources. So I actually built a pretty good book of business fairly
Nice.
quickly because of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Stock market's the only place where when it goes on sale, everybody runs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and people's antennas like go out all crazy. So I
Yeah.
was there for that, bond crisis in the 90s, and you've got 2000, and then 2007, 2008.
Hmm. When the identity shift and the hinge moment, right? These moments that change the trajectory of our life. And in May 11th, 2004, it was a hinge moment. I can let you pick it up from there, but you're turning left at a light and you get T-boned. And the part about that story that, you know, when the lady walks over to you and didn't want you to be by yourself, didn't want you to die by yourself. I mean, that's how tough the situation was, and there were a lot of God moments that were in this, especially with the Greensboro Fire Department. But I'll let you pick it up from there.
Oh man, that's it. When you talk about her name is Patsy Pretty, is Patsy Pretty. I didn't know Patsy Pretty until about 4 o'clock on May 11th, 2004. And she met me, but I didn't meet her on May 11th, 2004. But I did meet her in October of 2000, or excuse me, May 2005. I met her and spent some time with her. But long story short, I was out working and came off the interstate, stopped at a red light, making a left turn on a 5-lane highway, three going north, three taking left onto the entrance ramp, or two taking a left onto the entrance ramp. Um, my light turned green, theirs turned red. Two of the cars stopped that were in the far right-hand lane. In the middle lane, I don't know what she was doing. Don't know the lady's name even to this day. Um, she she her brakes started at my car door. So she hit me going 60 miles an hour, direct impact directly in the driver's side door. Um, and so the story that I talk about with Miss Pretty, Patsy was in the third lane and she saw it happen and she saw this lady not stopping. Ironically, she worked with the lady and they were both leaving work,
Oh, wow.
the lady that hit me. And so she went up to her and she checked on her first. She said, what what were you doing? What were you thinking? She said, are you okay? And then Patsy said to Sandy and I when we went out to dinner with her a year later, she said, I'll get through this. I walked up to your car and I took your hand. I reached in the car and took your hand and I wanted to pray with you because I didn't think you should die alone. Who does that, man?
Hmm.
And then, as you said, it was a God moment with the fire department too. They were doing a training session. One exit up on the interstate. They get the call. They happen to have 4 units there. All 4 units respond. All 4 units respond with jaws of life on their trucks, and thank God they had it because time was of the essence. But they took all 4 sets of jaws of life and just literally took the roof off my car because there was no way if I ever showed you pictures. At the time I was probably 5'11", 210-ish, not maybe 200-ish because I was still running then. But my car went from my brother's watch, there was a picture, to the tip of his finger. That was how tight the
Right.
driver's seat had gotten. So I was pinned in there and they had to get me out.
Mm.
They got me out very quickly. At one point, I got pictures of they sent me some pictures of their training stuff. There was 14 people that were either touching me or my car at one time.
Yeah.
14 people
Right.
to get me out of there and gone. No time for life flight. Moses Cone is a level one trauma hospital in Greensboro. They took me there. The docs worked their magic from there.
I mean, and you were messed up, man. I mean, you had a torn spleen. Um, I mean, even these moments that, an individual is going to like, let's get you a breathing tube, right? Like, I mean, that would have killed you at that point because of how much internal
Absolutely.
damage you had.
Yeah, so when they got into the ER, um, my vitals were going down fast. And so what they found is I had torn my spleen, which was creating the internal bleeding, but also tore my diaphragm. The impact tore my diaphragm, and the diaphragm holds your intestines down. And what they thought was a collapsed lung was a collapsed lung, but it was collapsed because my intestines had been sucked up into my chest cavity.
Mm,
And so if they had put the breathing tube in there at that time, it was actually a nurse that stopped
right.
and said something's wrong here. So super trained nurse that felt confident enough to say, "Hey, doc, don't do that. That's there's something else here." Because my intestines were on top of the lungs. Had they perforated that, the rest is
Right.
history. But I had bruised heart, liver, kidneys, all the ribs on my left side, collarbone was gone. Um, like I said, diaphragm tore, pelvis broken in, I don't know, 30 something places, hip shattered, and collarbone broke.
You were induced in a coma. Um, I mean, they had to use the paddles, as you said, 3 or 4 times throughout this span. I mean, it's 35 days. Um, and your brothers kept a journal. When you reflected on that, on their brothers keeping a journal, what stood out to you?
They're sick. No, they're sick because one of the things that was written in the journals, they did it at first. It was interesting to watch the progression of the journal. The journal was very numerical at first. You know, this is his heart rate, this is blood pressure, this is the meds that they're giving him. Nurse was here at this, and it was very technical. And then it evolved to more emotional,
Mm,
to where they started putting their thoughts in with it. Um, but the humor, and we get this from my mom, for sure. The humor in there was, of course, we're hearing what a pretty boy he was and what great skin he has and what great shape he's in because I had run a marathon the year before. My lungs were in great shape, but and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm still here is because my lungs could take the 35 days on a ventilator because at the time, I don't know if it still is, but at the time that was a record for longest time on the ventilator in Moses Cone and living.
oh, wow.
So yeah. So 35 days on the vent, but they would write in there when the docs wanted to turn down some of the meds, they were trying to check for brain activity. And one of the ways they could do brain activity is I had an eggplant on where my collarbone fractured. I mean, it was just a nasty break. And so what they would do to get my heart rate going is they would press on the collar on the
Oh, man.
eggplant, make sure they got my heart rate up and brain function, like
Right.
get me agitated. And it's like, ha ha, in the journey, ha ha, we're gonna,
Yeah.
these boys aren't right.
Um, I was hoping you could talk about the near-death experience you had in that because your dad
Man, you're
flew.
really getting to my fields.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing. I mean, but you're
No, but being in the home too, being in my hometown though, because I come up here once a year maybe. So all this is all it's good. It's a lot though.
I appreciate
Because
you
I don't
being
know.
here.
Yeah, so like this is an award my dad won from Xerox called the Malcolm Baldrige Award. This the Remington bronze behind me. he and a team that he was on for service excellence. It was a if you look up the Malcolm Baldrige Award, it's a national award given out to service excellence, and he was part of a team of five that did that.
Nice.
So sitting next to this and the story. So the story about the near-death experience, I tell people I know what deaf people hear because I know what absolute silence is because while I was sleeping, I'll call it, while I was sleeping, the only thing that I remember from 5 days before and the next uh, probably 40 days, I've got zero recollection of anything during that period of time, except for one incident. And that incident was uh, my father flew C-130s in the Air Force, so the big transport planes and so forth. But we were getting into an F-16, and we got in the F-16, and canopies open, and I remember flying at 750 miles an hour in complete and utter silence, just total silence. So that's the vivid uh, recollection I have. The other one is, Rob, is the colors that we see, we're living like so dull
Mm,
because the colors that I saw, HD's got nothing on it. It's just like how everything is just vivid, it's like so bright and so vivid. But we had this great, just quiet time together, not saying a word. He didn't say a word to me. And we get down, walk down the ladder, and he hands me this plaque. It's an oval plaque with an eagle in it, with a little nameplate below it. And I remember it's his name, Master Sergeant 9 Port, said 914th TAS, which is the uh, tactical air service that he was in. With his name, Master Sergeant, my name, Captain. So I'm like, shit, I outrank him here. I kind of like this place. But but he gave me the plaque. He put his hand on my shoulder and he shook my hand. And that was it. That was our interaction. And so when I could talk again, I couldn't talk for a while because I had to trach in and learned it. Again, the talk sounds silly, but I had to learn how to speak again. When I could talk again, I told Sandy about that because I remembered it. And I was like, hey,
yeah.
tell you about this. So she was talking to my mother, who had flown back up to New York, and she had told her about it. And she said, Sandy, we have that plaque. I don't know that Timmy has ever seen that plaque, but we have that plaque. It was up in our closet for years after, your father-in-law retired. So she went down into the basement and found it in an old box, but the nameplate was missing. And people are saying, yeah, BS. In another box while she was looking for something else at another time, she found the nameplate.
Hmm.
So, how and why are those two things separated? And, it was a, it was a gift to me to spend that time with them because you just felt the uh, emotion and the love and it just, but it also was like that touch on my shoulder. Not your time, man. Just
Right.
you'll be back. Hope.
Yeah, I love that. Um, when when you share with this, Tim, um, so many different angles we could take because I definitely want to take about how things changed for you. But before we get into that, like you had to learn how to talk again, how to walk again. And there was a 5K that was coming up, the Thanksgiving Day 5K, turkey trot, right? Doctor says, no way you're going to do that. I've always felt that that becomes such a powerful statement for somebody who says that's ridiculous, you can't do it, don't try it, regardless of the circumstance of what it is. But when somebody tells you that, it's kind of an inborn, okay, well, watch me.
Yeah,
Uh, you took one step your first day, and then by that Thanksgiving, I mean, you actually finished the 5K.
yeah. I mean, like I said, the year before, almost a year to the day, the year before, I run my first marathon. And I loved running because and you're a runner, so and you're an ultra guy, so you even know where the endorphins kick in and just the craziness that comes along with that, but also the ability to get in your mind and sort through some stuff while you're out there. So I loved running, and the orthopedic surgeon, when he came back and we started walking, the very first day that I could be weight mount, where I could stand up. They, got everybody holding you and stuff. And so I wanted to do it myself. And the very first day I could stand myself, walker in front of me, this is a room with all 12-inch linoleum tiles in it. And I shuffled probably maybe an inch at a time. But I'm talking about to lift a leg to go an inch, the energy that it took and the concentration it took to move one foot in front of the other, 1 inch. So I got through one tile and laid back down. And I slept, Rob, better. Not drug induced, not just slept because I was completely exhausted from one tile. And so then the next day became, okay, how do I get three tiles? And then how do I get to the door? And then how do we start taking laps around the nurse's station? And then, actually asking the therapist, okay, what do you think I can't do? And then so then became the fun thing. And so then I told the orthopedic surgeon, hey man, I want to do this turkey trot. This is probably July now, maybe August-ish. I want to do this turkey trot in 5K. He's like, and he was a big man. He's a big man. He's like, no effing way, dude. I'm like, what? He said, no effing way. You're just not going to happen. So then Thanksgiving came around. And I didn't run it. I wasn't running. It was a walk, jog, 12-year-old kid giving me encouragement along the way.
Hmm.
Uh, the following Tuesday, I actually had an appointment with him. He walks in the room and I said, by the way, Doc, yes, effing way. He said, what are you talking about? I said, you don't remember this, but you told me no way. And I said, I just ran the turkey trot. And he's like, you dumbass. I'm like, what? He said, you probably got stress fractures all over your pelvis that was cured. He said, you shouldn't be running. I said, you didn't tell me I shouldn't run. You told me I couldn't run. There's a
Right.
difference between those things. Words matter.
That's right. Um, your wife Sandy was there every single day. They even, I mean, gave her a key to the solarium, man. Like,
Mm.
um, what was this experience like for your wife and family and the team involved here?
That's the perfect way of saying it, the team. And she was a rock star. I literally probably wouldn't be here if she had not advocated the way that she advocated for my care. And Sandy likes being behind the scenes. She's not an out front person. So for her to step out and really drive certain things was very unique for her. The first time uh, they said, "Look, you just got to go home. You can't sleep on this ICU floor out here in the waiting room because it's dirty. I mean, you're going to catch something if you're not careful." And so she said, "Okay," and she went home. The one day she went home uh, with my brother took her home, and then just about as soon as they got there, they called her and said, "Look, we need your authorization because we got to do the paddles." And so she said, "Well, you got it, but I'm I'm coming back." So from that day forward, she stayed there the next 40 days. And until I woke up. And they gave her keys to a room, which is kind of a meditation room that closed at 9, so she could go in there at 9:15. She had her own key. So she was a rock star. The
Yeah.
team, the community, my kids, man, my kids were great. They became independent like that. My daughter was 17. My son was 14 or 15, and he's out giving talks at different churches that wanted to have prayer sessions for me and a variety of other things. And my daughter is, she's getting ready to graduate high school. I guess she was 18. Uh, Getting ready to graduate high school. I have to put all that stuff together on her own. Has to find her own way through college admissions and those type of
Hmm.
things. But with family and the community, then they just took care of. And my family, because I come from four brothers and a sister, they just everybody flew in and just took a job. And Sandy's only job was to take care of me, and their job was to take care of our kids and everything else.
Hmm.
But a whole
When,
team.
yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. When that happens, and you rehab and you start to come back, and there's a lot of ups and there's a lot of downs, and gratitude and perspective, how did that change in your life? Because the worst moment sometimes ends up becoming our best moment, but how did the gratitude and perspective change?
I mean, there's a clear gift, right? People say, "Are you freaking nuts?" That was a clear gift, and it was a gift to still be alive. So there was a mental moment, and I know when it happened. I know making this decision and praying about it is like I'm at this T in the road, and the T in the road is if I go left, it's man, why did this happen to me? I'm such a victim. I wasn't doing anything bad. Why did all this stuff happen to me? Or I can take it right and say, why me? Yeah, I'm still here. I've been brought back to do something really cool. Now my journey is to find out what's that cool thing? Am I here to help somebody? Am I here to be part of something? What is it? Where is it? How's it going to be? And what an exciting time, an exciting life to be just searching for that every day and still do to today. I'm not as cognizant as I was before, but I certainly am. And I mean, it was hell. Therapy, the first 35 days for me were easy. I slept. You know, you wake up, that shit got real then. It got
Hmm.
really real. Um, because the pain was incredible. When they talk about fentanyl now, I mean, I was on a fentanyl drip. And when they sent me home with fentanyl patches, Duragesic patches.
Right.
That stuff is so effective and so addictive that I was putting an X on the patch that was expiring because I want to make sure if there's anything left in that one, I could, still get some out of that one, and then
Yeah.
put the new one on over here. But I found out later that they don't give those things out to people that aren't really, really hurting. And so, walking those down and Sandy being by my side as I'm walking off of the pain meds, because therapy is what hurt. Therapy hurt badly. And I went at therapy hard because she and my kids and everybody around us had already been through enough. Now it was my turn to do my part. And my part
Yeah.
was to get back, lead the household, and let go. Because unlike somebody that's got cancer or something else, I, with certain exceptions, I knew I was going to be okay. I might have pain in my joints, I might have this or that or the other thing, but my prognosis for a full life was pretty darn good.
Right.
And so I've got everything to live for. Now I just got to get to that point. What's my maximum point of performance at this point?
And then to lead us into that then. Like how did your performance and channeling that into like your life, what changed?
I, I'd say that if I'm really honest with myself, and I've been through this obviously a zillion times in my mind, I was probably given 70% before and doing really well in life. Not giving it my all, but doing really well. Now it took 110% to make it down the stairs. Now it took, so now it's like, man, I got more in me. There's a lot more in my tank than I ever knew. And so it became a choice to maximize effort, to constantly do my best, to try to do things that haven't been done before. That's what kind of drives me a little bit, other than fear, fear of failure, is to, man, that's never been done. If somebody said you can't do it, that's kind of a driver for me. Growing up in a household of, four brothers and a sister, competition was always good. So
Right.
we, now you start competing with yourself. So I think that the recognition that I wasn't giving it my all before, and now I had more to give, and by giving that extra 20%, I found that the rewards were like a lot more than 20%, man. That extra little zone of effort gave me so much more reward.
Compounding effect.
Oh yeah, but you also had to have a little bit of humility along the way, because as I'm going through rehab, I'm doing things like walking into a heated pool with a walker, and like literally, I was doing 2 days on my own. So I'd go to therapy in the morning and then take a couple of pain pills, and Sandy would give me lunch, and then I'd go back in the afternoon and do my second session of something that I created to just try to accelerate recovery. And one of them was a hot pool aerobics. So I'm going in there with my walker, and literally these little ladies with the plastic flowers on their heads
Yeah,
for hair. They're coming. Oh, Tim! It was like Norm coming in to cheers. They'd help me down the ramp, and
there you
so you
go.
get a lot of humility, man, while you're trying to prove things.
Workout buddies. To, can you go down that path just a little bit more in terms of you had more to give, you gave more, and then you started to reach that full potential, but the payoffs were exponential. Talk to us about like, what's an example? What stands out to you about that?
Well, a couple of things. One, um, I found out that I was holding myself back, right? Where by pushing myself more, like successes started popping. And like, oh, that's interesting. And then, it starts feeding on itself, and the momentum, positive momentum is really a true force that works in your best interest. The other thing was alignment, alignment of uh, the job that I ended up retiring from. It aligned with my skill set and my experiences better than anything else that I had ever been involved with, the complex director job, and the people I was affiliated with, and their willingness to give me kind of broad pathway to run on. They just gave me the goal and the independence. Here's the goal. We trust you. That was the other thing, is when you are working harder, you're building up this trust, and then that starts building on itself. And uh, we ended up having, as you said, by the numbers, great success, because I think it was hard work, it was alignment. And the other thing, Rob, is that bullshit's gone. I don't have to worry about, I almost died, man. You can't tell me anything, you can't do anything. But also, if I'm not getting enjoyment out of something, we're out. Life's too short.
Hmm.
So if I'm loving this, let's go. And I found with Scott Stringfellow, I found an environment that validated what I was doing. They gave me free reign. They appreciated effort. They appreciated results. And then my boss, Mike said, "Hey, let's create the spot where we're the go-to place in the triad for brokers and for clients to go, for FAs and clients. We want to be the go-to place. That's our vision. We're not there now. I get that. We're a long way away from that. Let's get there." And then we did that for the Triangle region too. And that became like the pride that people had with that vision. The financial advisors, the staff, everybody else, we're all going together. Now they're all running individual practices, they're all competing against each other, they're all doing their thing, but they saw that vision of let's get best in firm, then let's get best in the town, then let's get best in the state, let's get best in. And
Hmm.
they became wildly successful. People that didn't want to go along for that ride, that's fine. They they could take a different train.
Yeah. Um, Scott and Stringfellow, I mean, that was a special culture that everyone developed. What stands out to you when you reflect on that specific time period?
I think the best way to acknowledge that is when I would take advisors to go see Mr. Scott as part of somebody I was recruiting. I'd bring him up to see Buford Scott, and part of his it was a half hour, almost boom, 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 like right on the spot. He never made you feel rushed, but it was always the first 10 minutes were, "Rob, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your family." And he was truly interested. It wasn't BS. What books are you reading? What's going on with your life? What do you love about your business? And then he talked about next 10 minutes. Let me tell you about our small but mighty farm. And he went back, 1893. My grandfather started the business. I'll show you when we leave here the desk that my grandfather sat at when we had this. He said there's only three tenants. There's three base tenants that we adhere to. And if you have a problem with any of these three, it's been a nice time meeting you today because these are just impenetrable.
Yep.
But if you can embrace them, you're our kind of this is our kind of people. Number one, always tell the truth. A man's word is his bond. Number two, always do what's in the client's best interest. The firm will make money. Don't worry about the firm. If you're doing what's in the client's best interest, they'll tell other clients about what you're doing. Your business will grow, the firm will grow. It'll be a wonderful spot. The third one is like the people you work with and be likable to work with. Pretty simple. And then, in that beautiful Southern gentleman drawl that he had, "Tim only brings fine men to see us, Rob." And I'm sure you're one of those fine men. But uh, if you if you decide to proceed with us, we'd love to have you along with it. And then he'd take him into the office and show him the desk that his grandfather, and he'd always have these little cards at the bottom with sayings in them. And if you had a son, he'd say, "Here, you're a dad of a boy. This one's good." Or if you had a daughter, that. But
Hmm.
he always had a card that matched up with something you said in that first 10 minutes, and he'd give him that. And when I talked to advisors later on about what did they love about the home office visit, Mr. Scott was always a highlight, but also the clarity and the simplicity of his vision was brilliant. It's brilliant. A man's word is his bond. If I can rely on you for everything that you say what you mean what you say, and you're going to do what you say you're going to do when you said you're going to do it. That's awesome. If you're always doing what's in the client's best interest, we don't have any compliance issues. We don't have any uh, reputation issues out in the community. And then I call it my no AH rule. No buttholes
Hmm.
allowed in there. And if you're in an environment where people actually like each other and want to help each other, now again, I had stallions, man. These guys are competing and they're racing. They don't want the other guy to beat them. But if you're in that environment and you like that person, that's that's a pretty cool place to be. You're making each other better by performing better.
And people are
And it
rooting
worked
for
for
each
this.
other.
Yeah, and it worked for the support staff too, the sales assistants, everybody. Because they'd have each other's back. If so and so's at lunch, I'll get it. I'll take care of this. I'll do that.
Yeah.
It's not 100% of the time, but man, we had just it was nirvana while it
Mhm.
while it lasted.
One of the facts that I just felt was a real testament to um, what you created and what was built, but the sales assistants, they were the primary breadwinner in the house, and
Yeah,
we're
it was
known for that.
and I give that to the generosity of our and the vision of our advisors too, because as they had more success, they shared their success. That wasn't necessarily something that I mandated. That was something that grew out of what they wanted to. Again, it's the competition, right? I'm paying my sales assistant. You're going to pay your sales assistant more, but the
But
primary
tell
breadwinner
us about that, Tim.
about the the competition to pay sales assistants
Well,
more.
yeah, I mean, with the advisors, the culture they started to create with their sales assistants.
Oh, yeah. So it's like, you know, the sales assistants would talk. And so when this one hears that, oh, this one just got a $5,000 bonus, what are they doing? And then the FAs would say, hey, why don't you find out what they're doing? Why are they that important to their team? If you want to bring that to our team, great. And so there was a sense of generosity, there was a sense of teamwork that was created by the advisors. I did a good job of hiring really, really good people and screening the people that wouldn't fit into our culture. From there, just you just had to keep them corralled in the right
Right.
channel. But I'd let the stallions run, man, and they would compete on everything, and they would they wanted excellence not for money. They wanted excellence to be the best advisor, to be somebody who really took care of their clients. The one thing I say about their culture that was tremendously unique, it had an intense focus on the client. There was an intense focus on the client. If the client needed something, then if I'm going to be a little testy, it's because I'm trying to make this happen for the client. And so uh, the world of compliance has gotten into that business so intensely and corporate edicts and various other things. But we had a time where we had the opportunity to be more independent and to make more independent choices on behalf of the client. It wasn't on behalf of so I could make more money. It was so I could help the client. And that
Hmm.
environment, that culture was I think the uniqueness and the beauty of it.
When you say that, that makes sense in my mind. Like revenue is the byproduct of excellent customer service. Where do advisors today, like where do they get that wrong?
I think that there's an intense corporate pressure.
Hmm.
I think I don't think the advisors get it wrong. I think the corporations do. And the great challenge for advisors is to maintain their independence, both independence of thought and independence of action, while working in some of these really rigid places. Um, so the where they get it wrong is corporations think the corporation and the shareholders are the most important thing. Advisors, really, when you dig down deep into it, those top quality advisors, they get it. They know that the client, if I take care of the client, revenue will take care of itself. If I
Right.
focus on revenue, I'm going to have sales perfume on and they're going to they're going to smell it, they're going to feel it. It won't be good.
That's a good line there, Tim. I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, go into a car dealership. There's a lot of sales perfume on there.
Hmm. Um, One of the questions, the today's advisor, the hardest part that no one talks about.
Well, number one is that challenge, right? That challenge to serve the minimal needs of the corporation while still maintaining their independence. I think the challenge I have is, and I think one of the big differentiators that they could do is there's not enough education, independent education, education outside of whatever the firm is spoon feeding you to create a unique thought and to be able to have uh, the education behind that thought that you have the confidence to bring that forward. So, example, you look at the Navy SEALs, the way they're training, right? They're
Yep.
training, so that everything is just kind of, but it's really the discipline that came up before that. It was all the workouts, it was all the things that they did leading up to it. So, what kind of reading is the FA doing? What kind of uh, wordsmithing are they doing? Are they practicing their wordsmithing before they come up to a client? What's their processes? Is everything so tight that when they get to the client, it's one, two, three. So I don't think there's the education, the challenge you asked. The challenge for the FA is there's not an education outside of what they want to spoon feed you and what they want you to regurgitate. So I think independent education, number one. Number two is I'll call it presentation education. There's tools now where a buddy of mine owns a firm called the Lego, where you can practice with a coach, you can practice with yourself, presentations before you're in front of the client, before you're in front of the clients. Because presentations don't vary. There might be probably 6 or 7 presentations, and there might be 2 or 3 initial presentations. So if you know there's only 2 or 3 of those, and you can personalize it and modify it, why wouldn't you perfect that?
Hmm.
And yet firms don't spend any time on that. They spend time on, did you make your notes? Did you do this? So you've got lots of checklists of things you got to do that have nothing to do with either client excellence or FA excellence. It's CYA for the firm. So
Yeah.
that distraction is a real tough thing for FAs and those that are strong enough to create a value proposition. I've educated myself. This is my belief. And by the way, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if you don't believe in that, that's okay. But we'll know that early on and we won't grind each other,
Hmm.
right? And then, I think now you have to have teams. And so now the challenge of not just knowing, you don't need to know, you got to be technically competent, but you don't need to create portfolios today. AI will do all that kind of stuff for us. So it becomes you're the emotional coach, your behavioral finance. You better be up to date on behavioral finance and communicating that. You better be able to monitoring systems. You better have forethought. You better have um, expertise on uh, relationships, expertise on uh, taxes, expertise on estate planning. Lots of different places where even if you're not the expert, you're aware that there's a opportunity to help the client and you have a pathway to help them.
Hmm.
And it's not always the corporate pathway. It's not always the corporate choice. And that's a big challenge, I think, Rob, for
Yeah.
advisors today is how to maintain their independence and still pacify the corporation's needs.
I appreciate you sharing that. It was very succinct. On that corporate piece, I'm gonna throw the word out there, purpose.
Oh
You
shit, that's a trigger for me.
I was wondering, I said, let's just throw the word out there to see what reaction we get. But I mean, you've even said it's not a corporate slogan, but I mean a lot of they've adopted it that way. Talk to us about that. Like, how do you make purpose tangible instead of just wallpaper?
Well, and what it does, I think when corporations do that, I think the worst thing a corporation could do is be hypocritical, right? And so when they say this is our purpose and blah 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 blah, and they have these great statements and so forth, I'll reframe it to vision. What's our vision and how are we going to execute on that vision? Alan Mulally, I heard him speak, he was the CEO of Ford and Boeing, and he talked about the importance of the leader creating a vision. And as
Hmm.
FAs become leaders of teams, as they become leaders of their clients, it's important that they create a clear, concise vision and put their values behind it. Why is this important to me? And what what are we doing to fulfill that vision? Um, and then communicate that clearly, not as a tagline, but this is the vision. My vision for you is that you can be financially independent and blah blah blah. But how we do that, this is how we do that. And if we're not aligned with that, let's know up front. I think I was pretty clear on my vision for my FAs. And so that helped us create this environment where we want to, having a near-death experience, dude, I'm not here to grind every day. I am not here to grind every day, but I'm here to have a great time and have a lot of success. And we'll have we'll have fun along the way and we'll improve people's lives.
Yeah. Tim, you talked about, and I'm a firm believer in this because number one, I never did it, but celebrating wins. Talk to us about how
Uh,
you instilled that in there and the importance of that.
you communicate, you know, again, I believe in meritocracy. I would communicate rankings. And as people moved up rankings, as the branches moved up, we had several times where they would be branch of the year or complex of the year. And that wasn't something that I did. That was something that was a uh, accumulation of the successes of all the FAs and all the sales support people there. That's all their successes. It just happens to funnel up through me. But it was each of these individual visions and each of these individual growth patterns that were happening. And then not only communicating it to a bigger group, but communicating those successes to the individual. I see you. Dean Smith, right? After the pass, what did
Yeah.
Dean Smith do? If the guy gave you a pass, you point to the guy
Thank the
right.
passer.
Look at what goes on now in the NBA. I was watching an NBA game the other day. Somebody threw a pass, layup, and the guy points. That was instilled because of Dean Smith at
Hmm.
Carolina. And so we did a lot of finger point. You did this, man. Good way to go. You've never hit $1 million. You just went over $1 million. What are you and your wife going to do to go celebrate that? That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I
Or,
love that.
pass their Series 7 for a sales assistant, or, you've got a team where everybody is licensed, good for you. And then these guys being competitive would say, how do we get this?
Right. Yep. Um, Tim, I appreciate this time and the insight that you provided. Is there a question that I'm missing that I should be asking?
Uh, You know, I don't know that there's a question that you're missing, but I made a couple notes before. I just want to make sure that the one thing I did put was that the role is changing of the advisor.
Yeah.
It's changing rapidly, right? It's changing so rapidly. And so to not address that for the opportunity for younger advisors, the risk for older advisors or more mature advisors, being stuck in their way, not embracing AI. AI is not an option. AI is how are you going to integrate it and use it to make you more strategic, more efficient with your business and so forth. A friend of mine's a CPA, He said, AI is amazing. He said, I can take numbers where I have a spreadsheet and I can tell it, put this together for me, where it used to take me 2 hours to calculate all those numbers. AI spits it out for me in 3 minutes. He said that's the efficiencies that we have now. But FA's got to do that, and FA's got to really redefine their role with the clients, because if the client's expectations of you are strictly returns, you're going to be out of a job with that client within 24 months. You might have to redefine your relationship with the client from returns only to let's make sure we're doing a plan, make sure we're helping you hit your vision. It's behavioral finance. If you're not studied in that, with Daniel Kahneman, I'd start reading all of his stuff. If you're not studied in, I mean, your position, you personally are positioned wonderfully to be an FA, because it's so much psychology now that goes along with the analytical piece. AI is taking care of the analytics. I think the role of the FA is still critically important, because behavior plays a bigger role in somebody's financial success more than uh, composition of the portfolio.
Right, right. Yeah, well said. I'm glad you brought that up.
So I think that's it. And then the other thing is team building. What's necessary for team building? Because teams are the wave of the future. And the reason they're the wave of the future, they've been here for 20 plus years. And I personally resisted it, by the way, because I thought it was just a way for the larger firms to keep the FAs together, because you have to recruit the whole team and not just one person. But really, it's defining different roles, different skill sets, different personality types that fit better with different people. So now we've got a multitude of people on our team. Key is having somebody that buys the vision, meets the primary, I'll call it the FA, the primary FAs meet their vision of work ethic and expectations. And if you got expectations and vision and work ethic aligned, education and stuff, we can backfill that, but we can't backfill personality. We can't backfill um, ability and desire to work hard. We've got to be aligned with that. And if we're not, then let's define that early and help them find a better fit.
Hmm. Tim, I enjoyed this conversation, man. I appreciate you taking the time
I
and
always
joining
enjoy
us. And
talking to you.
yeah,
I
really
learn a
enjoyed
lot
this.
to talk to you.
Oh, no, pleasure's mine. It was an honor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.